Hi, this is Sensei James Leonelli from Sensei's Weekly Mindset, and I'm here to talk to you about betonline.net. Betonline.net is your number one source for sports betting info, stats, news, and analysis. Get the latest odds and trends for every professional and amateur league out there, from football to basketball, soccer, and esports. Don't forget my personal favorite, MMA. We've got it all on betonline.net. And if you love sports podcasts, we can help you find those on BetOnline as well. We're always the fastest and easiest way to get your betting fix. And don't forget BetOnline for NHL, boxing, golf, and like I said, my personal favorite, the sport of MMA. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more. BetOnline, where the game starts. Thank you to BetterHelp for sponsoring this episode. Life isn't always easy, and you don't have to face it alone. BetterHelp is the world's largest therapy service, and it's 100% online. With BetterHelp, you have access to a network of over 25,000 licensed and experienced therapists who can help you with a wide range of needs. To get started, you simply answer a few questions about your needs and preferences in therapy. That way, BetterHelp can match you with the right therapist from their network. Then you talk to your therapist however you feel comfortable, whether it's via text, chat, phone, or video call. You can message your therapist at any time and schedule live sessions when it's most convenient for you. The best part is, if your therapist isn't the right fit for any reason, you can switch to a new therapist at no additional charge. With BetterHelp, you get the same professionalism and quality you expect from in-office therapy, but with a therapist who is custom-picked for you, more scheduling flexibility, and at a more affordable price, all from the comfort at home. To start your journey and to get 10% off of your first month, go to betterhelp.com/sensei. That's betterhelp.com/sensei. BetterHelp, you deserve to be happy. Hi guys, Sensei James Leonelli here to talk to you about another one of our sponsors, LMNT. An electrolyte drink mix. Each one of these little packets gives you exactly what you need to keep you as hydrated as all us athletes like to be. If you're like me, you work out a lot, and when you work out a lot, you also sweat a lot. Now, when we sweat, we don't lose just water, of course. We also sweat out salt. We sweat out electrolytes. So each one of these packets contains 1,000 milligrams of sodium, 200 milligrams of potassium, and 60 milligrams of magnesium, giving you everything that you need in order to maintain optimal hydration and nothing that you don't. So to go online, place an order for your sample pack, and to get yourself a bonus free sample pack, you're going to go to this website right here, elementallabs.refr.cc/James Leonelli. You're going to see this down in the video below, but I'll say it one more time for you. elementallabs.refr.cc/James Leonelli. Again, it's a tasty electrolyte drink mix with everything you need and nothing that you don't. Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Sensei's Weekly Mindset. I'm Sensei James Leonelli, owner and head instructor of Tiger Schulman's here in Smithtown. Once again, I am back in my home recording space, ready to give you guys this week's food for thought. You can see I'm wearing a bit of the Everyday We Train line. Not only have I worn a whole bunch of these shirts, I should say, on the show before. That's the amount of S's I'm trying to put in a row, and apparently that's a little too difficult. But they've also dropped a whole bunch of new shirts in this collection recently, different designs on ones that already existed, and so forth. Definitely check this collection and many more out at tiegear.com. So as I join you guys this week, coming up this Saturday, we have Flex Fights on let's see, number up to 35, I believe we are up to. And this is VWO, Vision World Order versus Flex Fight Series. And we have a bunch of fights booked for this card. Probably the most fights that I've ever been a part of as part of the Flex Fight Series team. And one thing that I keep seeing over and over and over again, there's a couple of guys who either are making pro debuts in Flex for the first time as mixed martial artists or kickboxers, or there's people who are still in their first couple of pro fights. And, I follow many of these guys on social media and so forth. And, people I've known for quite a while now because I've called amateur fights of theirs and now professional fights of some of theirs and so forth. And watching the growth and the training of these guys is always very fun, number one. But number two, you get to see very common mentalities. And we know that the mental aspect of martial arts and mental aspect of competition is as important as the physical. Someone, and we've seen it many a time in the sport, someone who just quite can't get there mentally. They just can't flip the switch, so to speak. And the other person is able to flip the switch, and maybe that person might be lesser skilled, but the fact that they were able to turn it on that night when their opponent could not, that's all it took to make the difference, where that person who maybe was less skilled is now winning. And, the same thing holds true in team sports too. We see it all the time, especially in the Super Bowl. Super Bowl seems to be a game of upsets where a favorite comes in and just all the cylinders aren't firing together. And as such, people, connections aren't being made, passes aren't being caught, runs aren't being opened up for, and mistakes are just happening left and right. And it brings me back to a thought, and it's something that I've seen shared by many of the fighters as we come into fight week here, and I'm watching their training montages and so forth, and as they're talking about their mindset and their mentality as we enter the fight. One thing that I see very often from the fighters is something that really kind of connects with a way of thinking that I've thought quite often. And it's a sentiment some of them are making, but it also is just a representation of what a lot of them are making. And one of them shared a post recently that shared this idea. And the idea was, when you're grinding at your dream, everybody tells you that you're crazy. And then when you have achieved your dream, everybody tells you that you're lucky. And the reality is that luck has nothing to do with it. Luck is simply what happens when preparation meets opportunity, right? When someone is well prepared and they are ready for that moment, then by all means, they can take advantage. And, a couple of great examples right on Team Tiger Schulman's. We had Jimmy Rivera, who was just, for lack of a better word, to go back to the same kind of word, grinding away on the regional pro mixed martial arts scene. And he was on, by the time I think he got signed by the UFC, he had something like, it was over 15, maybe like 16 or 18 pro wins in a row, which is something that is fairly unheard of. Like, you don't see somebody who does that very often. The only other person I can think of who had that many uninterrupted wins is Khabib Nurmagomedov, right? Everybody else that you can think of is great. They have some streaks in the records, but I don't think any of them. I know Jimmy's streak wound up being, I think, 21 or 22 fights in a row unbeaten. And nonetheless, just grinding away in the regional scene, fighting the best of the best of the best, going out to the Midwest, fighting people, having people flown in from all over the place to come and fight him. And just for whatever reason, that phone just wasn't ringing from the UFC. And then sure enough, short notice opportunity comes. If I remember correctly, he even had to fly overseas or to some weird location and take a fight on very short notice. But he was ready. He was prepared. And that was the thing. The preparation met the opportunity. And he went out and he stopped Marcus Brimage very quickly in about the first round or so. And then went on a tear in the UFC and was ranked very highly and very competitive in that division for a very long time. And the same holds true for Shane Burgos and for Julio Arce and for Lyman Good. All these guys took opportunities on fairly short notice to just fill in a spot. And they all made the most of that opportunity and then went on to have some very successful UFC careers. Shane Burgos notably got very high in the featherweight division, and then when he eventually moved over to the PFL, Dana White famously said, "Yeah, we messed up on that one. We let one slip away on us there that we should not have." Just shows you what a star that man was. But again, he came because he was prepared, and when preparation meets the right opportunity, then magically the stars align. Magically we come out seeming really, really lucky. And, I've seen many of fights in my time, one way or the other, either in person or on TV or, something like that, where the person lands a seemingly quote unquote lucky punch or kick. And the thing about it is, I can only, in all my time of watching fights, and I've watched many, between in person and on TV, I've watched tens of thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of fights at this point. And in all that time, there's only one time ever I can say that a punch that landed was a lucky punch. It was our outdoor card at Flex Fights a few years ago, July as I recall, so almost 2 years ago. And one fighter, the ring was slick because it was humid out. So one fighter lost his footing, slipped, and he was on a knee. And as he was standing up, his opponent was throwing a punch that, had he stayed on the knee, the punch would have went right over his head. But he didn't notice his opponent throwing the punch. All he noticed was he fell down. So he fell down, he posted with his hand, and his eyes went down to the ground to watch his hand hit the ground. So he got right back up, knowing his opponent was throwing punches. And his opponent had his eyes closed and was winging a punch in a big wide circle. And the dude just happened to stand up at just the right time where he ate the punch and got KO'd by it. And it was a worst case scenario kind of deal because, of course, like, just a comedy of errors. The fighter who got knocked out slipped out. When he slipped, he looked down, put his hand down. And then when he stood up without looking. His opponent was swinging a crazy wild punch that, again, would not have hit him if he had stayed on a knee. He got up and just ran into the punch face first. And, of course, the guy who landed the punch, in my opinion, did not read the room and the situation quite well enough and really thought that he just outstruck this man amazingly, which he didn't. And it gave him a little too much false confidence. And when he eventually competed again, you could see that false confidence in how he was competing, and he paid the price for it. But again, in all the fights I've watched, one lucky punch, right? One. Yet in every other fight that I've watched, any punch that was seemingly the lucky punch was done because the person was so skilled and so well trained that even in the heat of battle, they found a way to win. The most famous example of this is Czech Congo and Pat Barry. Two very decorated kickboxers who fought in MMA, and there's a bit of a feeling out process early in the fight, and Barry kind of does the Dustin Poirier, pulls up his trunks a little bit, switches his feet, and lets this right hook go. And he doesn't even really catch Congo with the fist. He more kind of catches him with the forearm, and he clubs him like right on the side of the temple, and it briefly turns the lights out on Congo, and he hits the ground. And the second he hits the ground, Barry's on him, and he's throwing and throwing and throwing. And it was this amazing onslaught where you're wondering, how is the ref not stopping this? And how is Czech Congo still with it? Because there were moments where like Czech Congo got hit with a punch and just like all of a sudden, bang, out of his face. But the second his face hit the ground, he'd be right back up, and in the action, you're like, oh my God, it was incredible. He got dropped over and over again, probably 2 or 3 times in the exchange where his legs went or his torso went, but immediately back in the fight. Like, not like he was down and he was out and eating on inch punches. Like, he got hit the once, he reacted to it, he got up, and then there was more coming. And eventually, in scrambling away from Barry, he manages to get to his feet, he manages to plant his right foot, and he lets this right uppercut go, boom! And Barry just runs into it, chin first, and no luck involved. It was simply Congo was able to be composed enough in the heat of danger, who was well trained enough to know what he needed to do to throw a powerful strike, and he saw an opportunity, and all that preparation met that opportunity in the heat of the moment. And again, I can think of other examples that were very, very similar to what would be considered lucky punches or kicks. Even a guy competing this weekend in one of the pro fights, in one of his pro fights for us in Flex Fight Series, he got hit with what many people might call a lucky knee if they didn't notice what was going on beforehand. And I know the gentleman I'm talking about. I'm not going to mention him by name and put him on the spot. But I know him well enough to know that he would beat himself up way more than he would ever say, oh, that was a lucky shot. And I think the fact that he would beat himself up is why he's been successful since that moment happened to him. That moment happened to him, and he's not going to let something like that happen again. He realized he kind of got caught sleeping and a little lackadaisical in his defense, and lesson learned. The man's never going to make that mistake again, which is admirable. That's what you're supposed to do. But again, in life, so often people will look at the success of others, at how well a person does something, and they'll cry about how lucky this person is. And is there a certain degree of luck in living life? Absolutely. Any one of us could have, stepped off a curb, that we didn't see the car coming and been obliterated by that car. Every one of us has been in a situation, I'm sure of it, where you weren't paying your best attention, you took a step out, and from the side you weren't looking from, a car was coming. And either the car beeped or you caught it just in time or whatever. If you caught it half a second later, you'd have been hit. And is there some luck in that? Sure. Is there some awareness in that? Sure. But if you wanted to point at anything lucky, that would be it, right? And I mean, when you're looking at games of chance, you can call that lucky. But when you're looking at things that only come from work ethic, you can't call that lucky, right? Like, again, this being the 40th anniversary of Tiger Schulman's, you look at a man like Tiger Schulman, like Danny Schulman, who opened this company 40 years ago. And he was a very young man when he opened it. And now he's very successful, runs a great martial arts organization, and has his hands in other things as well. But why? Not because he's lucky. It had nothing to do with luck. There were plenty of martial arts schools around him. There were plenty of martial arts schools around many of our schools. And miraculously, our schools continue to grow. And it's not a knock on those other schools. It's not. It is simply what happens when all the work that we put in, and all the work that he put in before, and all the work that the generations since him to the current generation have put in, that lead to the success, right? The opportunity is now there based on the preparation that we put in, right? The thing about luck is you make your own, right? A lot of people will think about like, oh, this person is lucky because the boss likes them better, or this person is lucky because they have these genetics, or this person is lucky because their parents are like this. And yeah, we're all lucky that we don't have some kind of genetic disease. Listen, I know plenty of people in my life that had plenty of medical conditions that just don't feel fair. You're like, there's absolutely no reason that this person should have this. Greatest example I can think of, Sensei Joe Curran, a man who took and still takes his health so seriously, and yet he has this rare genetic heart defect where he couldn't avoid getting a heart transplant. There's nothing he could do about it. And again, he could play the woe is me game. Oh, poor me, poor me, poor me. But that's not him. He'll never play that game, ever. Instead, he looks the other way, and he finds a way to make the best of the cards that he's dealt. And that's the thing. Life is going to deal us cards. We know that. We know that there's going to be good cards. We know there's going to be bad cards. But life is about when you get that hand where it's a 2 and a 7 and a green Uno card, like, you got to find a way to play that, regardless of the cards that are dealt to you. It doesn't matter, right? You can't change some of the circumstances that life will give you, but you can change your reaction to them. And the best thing you can do is be prepared for those opportunities. So those things that you dream about, those lofty goals, be prepared for those things. Live life like the kind of person who has achieved those things, right? During the 60-day challenge, we spent a lot of time talking about like your new identity, where you, instead of just thinking about having six-pack abs, you think about living the life that would create the person that would have six-pack abs, and what would that person be like who had those six-pack abs. And the same is true for all of your goals. So if you just live your life, if you just prepare yourself, and you just do the work like someone who has the things that you want to have, magically what's going to happen is the opportunity will present itself sooner or later. And when you're prepared, you can run with it. And then if you take that same mentality that went into that earlier preparation, magically you're going to knock it out of the park. To be a little self-appreciating for a moment, right? I was prepared to speak about martial arts when the opportunity for flex fights came along. And then I went and I took that same work ethic that went into being prepared and having done, so many episodes of a podcast at that point, having talked and explained martial arts for such a long time, for such a diverse group of people, that when the opportunity came along, not that it was the be-all end-all dream or what I was really after, but it was a cool opportunity. And when the opportunity came a knocking, I was ready. I was prepared. And because of that, I did well with it. And I continue to do well with it because I took that same mindset that went into the preparation and I do it every time. It's funny, I remember Charlie Campbell, who's been on the Flex broadcast a couple of times. He was doing commentary with me for the first time, and he happened to look over at my tablet, and he goes, "Oh, I've heard about the James notes. Are those all the James notes?" I said, "Yep." And I just kind of scroll through for him to show him what I've got. And he's like, "Man, that does not disappoint. That does not disappoint. I can see why, you do the job that you do." And I take pride in that. I take pride in the fact that I am prepared all the time. Because when you are prepared, like even when we did the Swing for the Stars, it works so well because Sensei Stein and I are so prepared. Number one, not that we're preparing to do commentary or something or doing a podcast together or whatever, but he and I have had so many conversations throughout the 20 plus years that we've known each other that we know where the other person is going before they go there. We know where the sentence they're saying is going to lead. We know how that's going to work out. So because of that, we can be there with the next thing. And then on top of it, we've prepared ahead of time. I set up everything ahead of time. I'm a very system-driven person, as is he. I'm a little more computer savvy, so he lets me do the setup. But then I give it to him as far in advance, and he's looking at it, and he's reading through it, and he's like, "Okay, I think I want to say these parts for each person. You say these parts." And we're able to make a really cohesive thing because we prepare in advance, because we are prepared. And then the opportunity comes, and man, we knock it out of the park. I think every year, Swing for the Stars has gotten better, and I think he's gotten better, and I've gotten better because of the fact that we put so much preparation into it. And we saw it even this year with Sensei Shane Baker, who jumped in to be our ring announcer this year. He prepared well. I was very impressed with how much he prepared. Not taking any away from the previous year's guy, but this year, Sensei Baker was very, very prepared. He even knew which, little tidbits that the fighters or that the participants gave us in advance that he was going to roll to. And he created the opportunities for himself. And did this guy look like a star. I had TJ from Flex Fights came and watched some of the show. He's like, "Man, you tell me this is the first time this guy's ever done ring announcing?" I said, "Yeah." He goes, "Oh my God, he prepares like you do." Yeah, he does. And that's such a beautiful thing, right? The opportunity came, he knocked it out of the park, and it's beautiful, right? And that's what happens in life time and time and time again. When you are prepared for the opportunity that you dream about. Sometimes it's just silly things, right? Like maybe you have a dream to play your musical instrument on stage in front of somebody, and you're real prepared. And then all of a sudden, a band that you kind of know, "Hey man, our guitarist is sick. Can you make it?" And they know you play. Sure, jump in. You're prepared. The opportunity is there. You're going to kill it. You're going to make your own luck, right? When preparation meets opportunity, that's where luck is a thing. That's where you make your own luck, right? It's not luck that you got. It's luck that you created. So take that mindset into whatever it is you're doing this week. Those little dreams that you have for yourself, those things that you visualize long term, make sure you're putting the preparation into them. And then when the opportunity comes, work that same way. So that's all I have for you guys this week. As always, you can reach me via email, senseileonelli@gmail.com. Find me on Twitter and Instagram. I'm at sensei_Leonelli. You can find, you can find me on Facebook. I'm Sensei James Leonelli. You can find my school online, tsmasmithtown.com. We're at facebook.com/TigerSchulmanSmithtown. Twitter and Instagram is at tsmma_Smithtown. You can find more about the Tiger Schulman's organization as a whole at tsk.com. Go to Sensei's Weekly Mindset, at Sensei's Weekly Mindset on Instagram for the podcast. You can find more about Flex Fights, everything else that I'm involved in at my linktree, linktr.ee/Sensei Leonelli. Not only will Flex Fights be online at throwdownsports.com, but in addition, it will be live on Fubo Sports 8 o'clock this Saturday, 8 o'clock Eastern this Saturday. So definitely tune in there to hear how well I've prepared. So on the Linktree, all the information for our sponsors and everything. As always, sponsorship opportunities still available. By all means, reach out to me. Other than that, my friends, make sure you guys leave a rate and review. It just helps. Subscribe, get your new episodes every Wednesday. But the most important thing you can do for me, guys, is share the podcast. It is the single most important thing you can do. It is the only form of advertising I have. So I very much appreciate when I see you doing it. Until next time, my friends, invest in yourselves. I'll see you guys on the mat.